Hey, what's up? Welcome back to another video here on Freewheel Photos. Today, we're going to take a look at the difference between a version and a snapshot inside of ON1. This is something I've received a few questions about, and I just wanted to make a video to clarify kind of where each of these tools fit in with the workflow process. So before we dive into ON1, let's talk about the differences between a version and a snapshot. A version is at your catalog level, and it takes a copy of your image and creates a virtual version or a virtual duplicate of your image. This is not going to be located on your hard drive. It will help save with space, and this is great if you are looking to export multiple copies or different styles on an image, and we'll talk about that here shortly. Versions are really great for doing exactly that. A snapshot is essentially the same thing, but it's in the edit module, and it takes a snapshot in time of your edit. So let's say you start out using Brilliance AI, you like what that does, and you don't want to lose that capability. You go ahead and hit a snapshot, you save that as edit 1, and then you can continue editing your photo. So now let's say you do some color adjustments and you get to a point where you really like the color adjustment and you don't want to lose that. You can do another snapshot and save that as edit 2, and so forth and so on. So if you end up down the line and you're like, man, something just isn't right about this photo, instead of having to go look through your history to figure out when you last enjoyed the photo, you can go to a snapshot and say, okay, I remember edit 2 was all of my color adjustments, and you can obviously name these whatever you want, but it just allows you to revert to a previous version or a previous editing time point while you were working on your image. Now, the other thing that's cool about snapshots is you can use it as a preview tool. So essentially, you can say, I want to see if this looks good in black and white. I want to see if this preset looks good on the image. And you can kind of just create a bunch of snapshots, and we'll take a look at that. So that's, in a nutshell, the difference between the two. Version and snapshot. Now let's jump inside of ON1 so I can show you where these two things live and how you can use them in your workflow. All right, so here we are inside of ON1 Photo Raw, and as I mentioned earlier, the versions are at the catalog level or your browse level. So here we are at the browse window inside of an album, just to keep things simple. All right, I have my original image that is sitting right here, and I created a version, and you can tell that this is a version because down here at the bottom, there is a little icon and it says versioned photo. So whenever you see that icon, that lets you know that this is a version. This image lives on my hard drive because it is the original, but this image here does not live on my hard drive. It only lives inside of my ON1 catalog. All right. Thus, it keeps my file sizes smaller, and it allows me to experiment with different things. And ultimately, if I wanted to export these two edits, I can do that by selecting both of them because ON1 reads it as its own file. And then I can go to export and export both of those images. And I now have two options between what it is that I was editing. That is really the value of working with versions. Now, previously, before snapshots came in to ON1 Photo Raw, this was the only way that you can kind of experiment with different looks on an image and retain the information in a previous edit. But now that we have snapshots, so we're going to go ahead and jump into this original image. So here we are inside of the image, and you can see I'm already on my snapshots tab. Now, if you are in a version of ON1 that allows you to hide your tabs, and maybe you were like, I'll never use the snapshot tab, but you forgot that you hit it and you're panicking. You're like, Chris, I don't see snapshots. Here's what you need to do. You got to come over to the 3-line menu. You'll click that, and then you'll make sure that snapshots is actually checked. If it's not checked, then it's not going to be there. So like, let's say I want to get rid of nav, I can do that. And now nav is gone. Makes my interface a little bit cleaner and easier for me to work with things that I only want to work with. But that's how you'll find snapshots if it is missing on your browser or your interface. But what you can see is I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 snapshots saved to this image. Now, right now I am on the original image. You can tell there's no edits anywhere. All right. But as soon as I click this black and white one, I now get my black and white edit. And this is, this is representative of a time when I was working on this photo and I was like, you know what? This looks great in black and white. I want to save this so I don't lose that information. And what it does is it really just saves a copy of all of the tools that you've had in effects or wherever you were. And because this was from a preset, it's only in effects. You can see that develop is untouched. All right. But then I could say, well, maybe I don't really like this look anymore. And then I started working on the image a little bit further. And then I came to this look here and I was like, oh yeah, that's the look that I really, really enjoy. Now I can go ahead and hit new snapshot, save that as a snapshot. And then I can, look at all of the effects that I used to create this particular snapshot. Again, this was a preset, so I'm just showing you the idea and so forth and so on. So now I'm very quickly able to kind of gauge like, okay, do I like this? Maybe, maybe not. Do I like this one? And then it's like, oh yeah, I really like that one. But then I have to say, okay, do I like this one versus the original? All right. And so then I have to click on the original and I can click here and say, okay, yeah, I think I do like this one over the original, but it should be a little bit brighter. Then I come over to develop and I can pull up on the exposure. I'm like, that looks great. Now, if I click off of this, I'm going to lose that exposure adjustment. So let's say I go back to the black and white one, just to show you. And then I say, okay, I want to go back to this one. Now I lost that exposure adjustment. Whenever you make an adjustment using a snapshot, and this is very important, otherwise you will be very, very frustrated. And sometimes you can save what you did by coming back to one of these, to the history tab. But let's say you just have no idea where that is in the time in history. Well, you want to make sure that if you're using snapshots, that before you click off of the snapshot that you just created or edited, that you right click on it and you click update snapshot with current settings. This is so important if you're going to use the snapshots in your workflow. Otherwise, you will find yourself very, very disappointed. But again, you can come to history and sometimes you can get back to where you were, especially like if you catch it immediately. But I didn't catch it immediately and that was life. So learn from my mistake. That's why I make these videos, so you can edit a lot faster and more efficiently as I share the things that I may have done that cause problems. So here's the downside to using snapshots that you don't have with versions. At the current time, and if ON1 fixes this, I will be greatly thankful. At the current moment, I can't export all of these by like using some sort of a token and then maybe getting a little checkbox of which looks you want to export. I don't know. I would love to be able to do that in the export module, but right now you can't export them. So what you have to do is, and I've demonstrated this in a previous video, what you have to do is you have to right click, and my computer takes a little bit of time for the right click menu to pop up. But if you have a keyboard shortcut, you can definitely use the keyboard shortcut to create your version. But essentially you have to create a version. And once this pops up, we'll take a look at it. All right. So what you'll do is you'll right click and then you'll hover over create version. I'll click that. It's going to create that virtual copy or the version of this image. And it retains all of those snapshots inside of my editing module inside of this version. So that's actually extremely helpful because now I can just come in here, double click, select the black and white edit, let that save onto the file here shortly. Select my black and white edit, hit the blue check mark. And now this is going, the preview in my catalog is going to update with that black and white edit. And then I can continue this process. And then let's just, for the sake of time and showmanship, let's say that all three of these are the photos that I want to export. Remember, these two are versions, not going to be on my hard drive. What I can do is click, select all of those, and then I can come down to edit and I can export all three of those images. So now I have three distinctively different photos that I can share with the world or deliver to my client. So that is the value and the power of being able to create a version and using snapshots. So how would I recommend you use these tools? I would say create snapshots and, work out what you want that image to look like in, its multiple forms. So if you want 5 different looks on a particular image when you export it, then work out those 5 looks using the snapshot tool inside of the edit window or the edit module. And then come back to your catalog and create 4 additional versions, right? Because if you made 5 snapshots, you already have the original. So that takes away the need for an additional, unless you want to make 5 versions, it doesn't matter. This is just how I think. I already have my original. That's going to be a look. So then I only need to create 4 versions and then assign a snapshot to each one of those versions. And then I can select all 5 of those images and export them. And now I have that. And I do have a video where I showed this. If I can find it, I'll link it down in the description box below so you can kind of watch that in live action. So hopefully this answered the question of what's the difference between a version and a snapshot for those who have been asking. Now, if you still got questions of where does this fit into my workflow, please leave them down in the comment section below or send me an email and I'm more than happy to help with, satisfying those questions or helping you with a solution for your workflow. Now, if you want a more definitive solution to your workflow inside of ON1 Photo Raw, I really do encourage you to consider signing up for a one-on-one coaching call with me. You can do so by clicking the link in the description box below, and that gives you time with me where I ask you questions specifically about what you're trying to achieve inside of, and then help you streamline that workflow so you can get your edits out faster and you don't have to be frustrated with the interface or with tools and not be overwhelmed with the multitude of tools available inside of ON1. So if that's something you're interested in, I really do recommend that you look down in the description box below and sign up for one of those coaching calls. And if you want to save some money over at the ON1 store, then consider using my coupon code FreeWillPhotos20 when you check out. I do make a small commission from everyone who uses that coupon code, and I do greatly appreciate it. But the good news is it's at no extra cost to you. So you are saving money when you use that code. Until next time, I want you guys to stay inspired and keep creating. Peace.